everyone. I'm so glad to have you all here with me in the Meet Your Mentor podcast. If you're coming back for another episode, then welcome back. For those of you who are first-time listeners and don't know much about the Mentor Project, we are an organization that is dedicated to passing knowledge, culture, values, and so many other things to help mentor people in fields that they might be interested in. And for the new listeners who don't know me, my name is Elise, and I will be your host for today. I just completed my sophomore year, so I'm officially a junior in high school, and I'm interning at the Mentor Project, which has given me so many incredible opportunities. As for this podcast, each week I will be interviewing one of our world-renowned mentors and asking about their job, some advice they may have, what it means to be a mentor, and so much more. Quick shout out to our listeners and our sponsors for making this podcast possible. Now, I think you guys will really like what we have in store for you today. The mentor I'm interviewing today is Mark Beal. Mark was a public relations practitioner and a marketer for more than 25 years. He worked to develop and complete a lot of public relations campaigns for sports and entertainment platforms, including the Olympics, the Super Bowl, the World Series, and so much more. Now, he is a full-time professor of public relations in the Rutgers University School of Communication and Information, and he's a researcher of Gen Z. He's written a book called Engaging Gen Z and has given a lot of keynote speeches about this topic. Without further ado, welcome, Mark. I can't wait to get started with you.
Well, Elise, first of all, thank you so much. And as someone who I immerse myself in Gen Z every day, I've got to applaud you. I mean, a junior in high school, creating content through podcasts and other channels. I mean, incredibly impressive. So I want to compliment you and applaud you, because this is why I'm so bullish on Gen Z, because it's Gen Zers like you who are doing innovative things like this podcast that, to me, again, is so impressive.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So kind of to begin with, actually, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, obviously, just saying, I research Gen Z, that's kind of straightforward, but I'm curious to know more about it.
Absolutely. I'll give you a little backstory on that, because I do get that question a lot. Why? You're an old Gen Xer. Why do you research Gen Z? So
yeah.
For most of those years that you talked about when I was in public relations and marketing, for many of those years, the primary focus for my clients were millennials, right? What are millennials all about? What makes them tick? Why do they purchase this product over that product? And so as I started teaching at Rutgers University, a light bulb went off. I believe it was in 2017, where I finished a course. I just finished with my students. And as I left the campus, I said, millennials have been the focus. Gen Z will be the focus. Maybe not in 17, maybe not in 18, but in 21, 2022, 2023. And that was it. That was the light bulb moment. And so starting then, I just started immersing myself in Generation Z, your generation. And so I won't give you all the details, but the first phase was just gather as much information, every study, every survey that has been done around the world, read it, learn it, understand it. Then that led to one-on-one interviews with Gen Zers at the time. This would have been 2017, 2018, who were 13 to about 23 across the country. And just one-on-one interviews like we're doing now, by phone, by text, by email, in person. And then that led to the first book in 2018, which is titled Decoding Gen Z. And that was more about, what are you and Gen Zers doing on your phones? What are your favorite social media channels? How do you consume content? And then, as you know, things move so quickly that in 2019, I thought, let's come out with a second book. And in this one, I collaborated with a Gen Zer, Michael Pankowski, who is going to be a senior at Harvard in the fall. Wow. And I said, we've kind of covered, what Gen Z is kind of doing on their phone. Let's go deeper than that. How do, especially now, how do employers recruit and retain Gen Zers? How do companies market to Gen Zers? And so that's what Engaging Gen Z is all about. And that's what's led to these, keynote speeches to companies, organizations, sports leagues, sports teams, you name it. So for me, it's been a great opportunity to learn. I'm learning new things every day by meeting with Gen Zers like you, and then share those learnings with others.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've never really heard of someone who specifically kind of studies that. So it kind of sounds like your research is kind of the full picture and everything. But do you find that most of it is how technology is affecting Gen Z? And that's because obviously technology has become so widespread, and now we're growing up with it in comparison to like the other older generations. So have you kind of found that that's where your focus
It's
is?
a great question, Elise. And it's funny, one of my first 2 or 3 slides in my keynote speech, and I can't take credit for this quote, so I will give credit to the person who said it, but the slide says, Gen Z is the first generation that learned to swipe before they could wipe. The CMO of MTV, full credit goes to her, right? But it's exactly what you just said. Gen Z has had technology in the palm of their hand since age 1, 2, 3, 4. They're very comfortable with technology. They're very comfortable with new updates to their phone, new apps, right? All those things. In fact, they're not so comfortable. They want it. They welcome it because, as you know better than I, it just makes doing business more efficient. I can get things done more quickly. I can maybe reach more people I want to reach out there through technology. I can launch a business. I can launch a nonprofit all through this technology. So you're absolutely right. A lot of it is, I like to say, tech-centric, right? Technology is at the center, but it's not all that, right? But you're absolutely right. That's a key foundational element is their use of technology. They're just being so comfortable with it, and they're bringing that now, as the class of 21 just graduated. They're bringing that to employers, and so what I always say is employers need to have their eyes and ears open because Gen Z can bring some really interesting innovations, technology, and other things to the office to, again, make work more efficient, more effective. And that's one of the things Gen Z is bringing.
Yeah, definitely. So another question that kind of just popped into my head is, obviously you are doing this professionally, and this is kind of like your job and where your focus is. But have you found that this has kind of impacted the way you interact with either someone from Gen Z or someone from another generation, just in your daily, like, personal life?
Without a doubt, you're absolutely right. And I think, to your point, so I had the background of 25 plus years in marketing and public relations. Now my main focus is really, teaching at Rutgers University. But to your point, it comes together so well because I'm primarily teaching Gen Zers. And as you say, I say teaching, I'm really collaborating with Gen Zers, right? I'm teaching them things about marketing and public relations. They're teaching me about what's trending, what's new, what's new in technology, what's new in social and digital media. So you're absolutely right. Even in my courses, and I know we've been kind of, as most universities have been, remote and virtual for the last year or so, but making the content real time, real world, making it highly engaging, giving my students, especially my marketing courses, real world clients, believe it or not, that they can develop a campaign for. So it's not just real time, real world. It's applicable. It's valuable that they can now take this and they can go use it as they go off into careers in marketing, public relations, and social media. So you're absolutely right. I'm trying to deliver valuable content in my courses that not just resonates with Gen Z, but they walk away and feel like, wow, I received so much value for that now I can apply to my next internship and my next job.
Definitely. I feel like it's very cool to be able to have that impact kind of on people's lives.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more about kind of just what it means to be a public relations practitioner, because I feel like that it's kind of a broad field. So could you go a little bit into that?
No, I appreciate that very much. It's changed, it's evolved significantly because of technology, because of social media. So as I teach in my courses, I can kind of give it to you pretty simply. Pre-2000, so pre-Twitter, Facebook, right, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. Public relations, for the most part, we spent a lot of our time, what we call pitching editorial gatekeepers at the New York Times, at USA Today, at Good Morning America, right? To try to convince them to have our clients on air or write about our clients, whatever those clients might be. That was, I don't want to say the only thing we did, but it was really, again, public relations. You have a client. One of your primary objectives is to generate editorial media coverage for your client. Because again, pre-2000, you didn't have social media influencers. You didn't have bloggers, right? We didn't have any of this. Fast forward to today, and yes, that's still an element of public relations. But if you were in public relations today, if you were, say, graduating from college this year and going to work for an agency, you would be researching and identifying and potentially working with social media influencers, right? So people who are popular on TikTok and Instagram, and creating partnerships with them to, again, for lack of a better word, promote your clients.
Mm-hmm.
You would be obviously developing campaigns, both strategic and creative campaigns to, again, engage the target audience, whoever the target audience might be. As I tell my students all the time, and this is why, Elise, I applaud you, you'd be creating a lot of content. I mean, you're creating content right now. So in public relations today, you're creating all types of content, from tweets to posts to podcasts to mini documentaries. So public relations has really evolved into integrated marketing communications, right? It's not just pitching editors and producers and hoping to get your client on TV or featured. It's a combination of all those things. So to me, the most exciting time to get into public relations is actually now in 2021 and going forward, because it truly is integrated.
Definitely. And for people who have been listening to this podcast for a while, one thing that I have found myself mentioning again and again is the fact that as a person who's Gen Z, I always feel like we've kind of been on the cusp of technology. Like, I remember being like 5 and writing emails to my friends on this huge chunky like computer, and now like 11 years later, here we are, and technology has just progressed so much. And I know this is like a common thing for generations to feel that way, but that's just kind of the experience that I've had. So
yeah, and that's why and that's, again, fly by word, that's why I'm so bullish, so optimistic about you and Generation Z, because I go back to it. Wherever not just work, but when you intern, when you work, you're going to bring things to that organization, that company, that agency, that nonprofit, they're just not thinking about. And so I'm a big believer in, Target has done this. They've been doing it now for about 4 years. Converse is doing it now. The National Hockey League is doing it. I'm a big believer in that organizations of all types, big companies, nonprofits, professional sports teams, should invite Gen Zers like you as part of a incubator, a think tank, and connect and collaborate with you on, well, what will resonate today? What kind of content makes sense? And so some are doing it really, really well. And as I go out and speak to others who say, hey, we want to be more engaging with Gen Z, I'm like, well, first step is invite local high school and college students in your area, wherever you may be based, and make them part of kind of a formal, again, think tank or incubator. And what does that mean is you're going to connect with them. You're going to collaborate with them. You're going to have them help you inform and inspire your next campaign, your next content, your next ad, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I really like your use of the word collaborate as well. I think that's just kind of a better word than, like you said earlier, you kind of correct yourself.
I agree.
Than teaching. Yeah. I also kind of want to applaud you because, once again, for people who have been listening to this podcast, they know one of the questions that I usually ask is like, how has your field changed over time, like from when you started to now? And you kind of already answered that. So thank you. But my next question, which I kind of feel like I can already anticipate the answer, is what are some skills that you think are very, very beneficial just to being like to working in public relations or marketing?
Great question, because I've just, obviously the class of 21 just graduated. So I've been working very closely, collaborating very closely with so many graduates to help them get that first job. So this is dating back to, again, mentoring, right? It's all about mentoring. So this is dating back to January, February, March. And so to your point, the first phase of that is, let's look at your resume. Let's see how you're articulating your experiences, the value you'll bring. And that's where I get into what you just asked about. For example, a question I'll ask, I'll say, well, are you, even just personally, are you active on TikTok? Are you active on Instagram? Are you active on, Twitter? Yeah, I am. I'm really active. In fact, I know TikTok, that's got to go on your resume. That's what, as a marketer, 30, 40, 50-year-old marketers are relying more on you to help inform a TikTok strategy. So even if it's just social, but TikTok, you understand TikTok, you understand how it works and what works well, that's something you bring. So that's got to be, so to speak, on the resume and also in the interview. And so that even goes back to what I talked about earlier, content creation. It's a key word, creating content. I just finished, yesterday I was collaborating with a student and helping them get their first job. And I'm like, you never use the word content once in your resume, but that's what they're looking for and hiring you, right? So
Yeah.
you've done it, and you kind of have it as, a podcast and this, that, but content creation. So it's things like that, one Gen Z may already be doing, again, socially, or through internships, but it's things like that. Do you understand content? Do you understand social media platforms? I'll give you another really quick example. Lately, I've really been pushing, when I speak to companies and organizations, I'm like, Gen Z is hanging out at a lot of places that maybe older generations are already aware of. So I talk about things like Discord. I talk about things like Clubhouse. I talk about platforms like Twitch. And then I follow that up and I say, one, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you need Gen Z. And two, I would even have more fun with it and go out and hire hire a CTO, a chief TikTok officer. Go out and hire a CIO, a chief Instagram officer. And I mean that seriously. What I mean is, Lisa and other Gen Zers understand these platforms. They're hanging out on these platforms. They're connecting with others in these platforms. They can inform and educate you on how could a brand potentially engage their audiences through those same platforms. So again, you kind of naturally already do this, but I think when it comes to resume writing and interviewing, most of the students turn to me, it's like, really, I should mention? Yeah. If you're going into marketing, that's where marketing is now. It's these platforms that are relatively new. And if you're familiar with them, if you use them, as I like to say, if you're fluent in them, if you're fluent in TikTok, you better promote that as much as possible as you're applying for jobs in social media, marketing, public relations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with everything you said, obviously. But like, it's just very interesting because I feel like obviously technology is such a focus and like a center of today's society, but still, at least for me personally, before this interview, whenever I was like, oh, like marketing or like public relations, you really don't think that those two overlap, but you made a great point in saying that, yes, they do overlap like a lot.
Well, I like to, not to interrupt you, but on the first day of every class, every semester, especially if it's a course where the title of the course is like, public relations. First thing I say to every student is, you may not have signed up for a marketing course, but you're in a marketing course. So I like to say marketing is this umbrella under which advertising, public relations, social media, event marketing, but it's all marketing. Everything is marketing. A tweet or a post you put out promoting something is marketing. You may be doing it through social media, but it's marketing. Even this podcast, that when you put this podcast out and promote it, you're marketing the podcast, right? You may not use that language. You might not say, oh, I'm going to go market the pod. No, you probably say, I'm going to go promote the podcast, but it's
marketing. Yeah. And I lost my train of thought. Sorry. I had some comment. Maybe it'll come back to me later. But for the time being, I kind of want to talk to you about, like, what does it mean to you to be a mentor and to be able to impact all these people's lives?
I've said this recently to a few people because I do spend an extraordinary amount of time mentoring and helping the next generation, right? And whether that's, again, helping them secure an internship, helping them with their resume so they can secure an internship, preparing them. Just yesterday, I spent at least 2 or 3 calls preparing current students for job interviews that I help set them up with. So I wanted to prep them for the interviews. I say I spent the first 30 years of my career focused on profit, right? How do I make money? I want to spend the next 30 years on purpose. How do I help others? And the way I can, at least I think, help others is by mentoring Generation Z and eventually Gen Alpha, which are those who are about age 1 through 5 right now.
Yeah.
But that's my focus now. It's about having, again, kind of a higher purpose. And for me, that purpose is giving back or paying it forward, whatever you want to say, helping that next generation make the inroads that I was fortunate enough to make, 30 years ago. So it's just, I've had a lot of mentor conversations with folks lately. In fact, I was on Clubhouse 2 weeks ago. I was a guest on a conversation about mentoring. And what I kind of said is, it can't be forced. It really can't be forced. I know there's a lot of companies that we have a mentor program and you're going to be assigned to this person. That's fine. But it's got to come out of a place of like for me, it's a place of, this is a purpose. This is my mission now. I want to help people every single day. And my focus primarily is helping the next generation. Not that I won't help anybody, but it's really helping, college students who are now looking to transition to their career. So That's all. It's my purpose in life. And at this point in my life and my career, it's exactly, it's what I want to focus on, aside from, again, collaborating with students in the classroom and of course, interviewing Gen Zers all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you, when you were just starting out, did you have any like mentors that you really looked up to, or is this kind of something where you're like, I just have been wanting to do this and want it? Like,
no. I think it goes back to, and it's funny you bring this up, because I have a podcast as well where that's a question I always ask when I ask people who are leaders today, whatever they might be leaders of, CEOs and I ask, by the way, who were some of your mentors? Yeah. And so, yes, absolutely. I'm not going to go into detail now, but I can go back to every opportunity I had, every internship in college, getting that first job, the second job. I can connect it all back to someone who was a mentor figure in my life, right? But I will give you a really quick example. But my own dad, I remember it was, and I don't want to date myself, but it was the summer of between my junior and senior year at Rutgers, and it was, let's say, April of that year. So it was springtime, still in class, and thanks to him, I was able to secure an internship at what was then called WNBC Radio. It doesn't exist anymore, but WNBC Radio is a pretty popular station. In fact, it's where Howard Stern was, had a show. And so it was great. This is great. I'm going to be going in there every night. I'm going to be working on the sports show. It's wonderful, right? And then my dad came back and said, "Oh, by the way, I know someone in public relations, and maybe you can get an internship there." And of course, being a junior in college, who thought, this is my summer, I can't work all summer. My first reaction was, why would I want to do that? I have this internship every evening in New York City at 30 Rock. Why would I do that? Luckily, within 24 hours, somehow another light bulb went off. I'm like, what am I thinking? Of course I want to do that. And so he, again, helped me get that internship. And between that summer of junior and senior year, I worked from 9 to like 5:30 at a small public relations agency. And then at 5:30, I ran to 30 Rock and NBC, and I worked from 6 to midnight helping produce a popular radio show, took a nap and did it all the next day. But if I didn't, so to speak, listen to my dad / mentor, first of all, I never would have taken advantage of probably either opportunity. And both, especially the PR agency, that changed the course of my entire life and career after that, because after day one at that agency, which was the internship, I said, why would I want a second internship? I want to be enjoying myself. After day one, I said, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. So again, I tell students that all the time. I just, behind every door, behind every person you meet, it could open up to, you don't even know the opportunities. You just won't know. That's why you need to just always have those eyes and ears wide open everywhere you go. It can be a family party. It could be a social event. It could be a guest lecture. You never know where that individual could take you to, and you don't know, that person could end up becoming your mentor now and for the next 20, 25 years. You just never know. So you always want to be kind of aware of what's around you, who's around you, because someone could really influence, your career.
Yeah, definitely. That's very, very inspiring. I have a couple comments left, and then we can kind of wrap up here. But I did remember the thing I was going to say earlier, and I was going to say that I found when doing these podcasts and when talking to a lot of different mentors, a lot of them have said, like, it's very much kind of a winding path. And so they would start out in one field and then end up kind of switching, or they have a different focus now than they did like 20, 30 years ago. But the skills they learned in that original field that they were in have like obviously helped them throughout life. And I find that obviously with me having to start to worry about college and all that stuff, I've heard a lot of people say like no one has it figured out. And like you're going to feel a lot of pressure to just pick one thing and stick with it. But like no one has it figured out. And so that's just been kind of a common theme that I found among mentors, which I just find very interesting. And obviously it makes sense now that I think about it, but it just didn't cross my mind originally.
Yeah, I first of all, I completely agree with you. There's a colleague of mine who I've worked with for years who's a leading marketer for a leading company. And what he likes to say is, no one's an expert. And I agree with him, meaning things are evolving constantly. Things are changing constantly, right? Just when you thought you knew something, it's changed. But You're right. Don't put pressure on yourself as I need to figure this out before I go to college. No. Instead, gain as many experiences as you can, meet as many people as you can. Let that inform the path you may want to take. And even after you graduate college and start at that first job, you may be 6 months in and say, you know what, this isn't exactly what I was thinking, right? So absolutely. I try to tell my students, don't let anyone pressure you into, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should be here, At the end of the day, we all have to look at only one person in the mirror, ourselves. And we have to make decisions that are best for us when it comes to, again, internships, jobs, going to this university, maybe over this university. Ultimately, we're the ones living with those decisions. So you're absolutely right, Elise. No one, especially high school, college students, young professionals, should ever feel pressure like, boy, I should have all this thing figured out and I should know what I'm doing for the next 3 years. No one knows.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah, exactly. You said that very well. Kind of exactly what I was thinking. My last thing is just, if there's anyone listening or watching who has found this very intriguing and wants to know more, what is the best way for them to contact or reach you?
Well, I have so my website is www.markbealspeaks.com. Okay. And on that site, all the books I've authored, many of the speeches I've delivered, the media interviews I've conducted. But that site is, yes, I'm featured there, but it's really kind of my Gen Z site where I've got all my Gen Z content there. So that's a good place to find me. Of course, LinkedIn, simply search Mark Beal, professor at Rutgers, and connect with me. And I'm just one of those people that if someone emails me, if I didn't know you, Elise, and out of the blue, you sent me a note on LinkedIn, I feel it's my responsibility to respond to you and collaborate with you, right? And help you with, as opposed to ignoring you. So if someone does connect with me on LinkedIn or emails me, I'll respond and we'll set up a session to strategize and collaborate and see where we can take it.
Okay, that sounds good. And then as well, I will go ahead and put the website that you mentioned. I'll put that into the description. So if anyone is listening and wants that, they can find it there. So yeah, that's about all I have, but thank you so much. This was really, really interesting. And I'm glad we were able to, find a time to make this work.
And I just want to say, I don't want to embarrass you, but like I said at the beginning, again, you and others like you, Gen Zers, seriously, you inspire me. I mean, just the fact that you're producing this podcast, and you're going to be a junior in high school. Now you may think, oh, that's what I do. That's pretty inspiring. That's pretty cool. So I just want to, you've again reinforced why I am so inspired by your generation.
No, thank you. I consider that a very, very high compliment. So I really appreciate it. It was definitely a bit of a learning curve when I got started, but I just, the advice and the things that I've learned are amazing. And I really wasn't expecting to going into this. So I'm very, very glad I've been doing this.
And I'll commit now. I don't know when we'll do it, but I did just launch a new YouTube series called Gen Z from A to Z. And it's short, 4, 5, 6 minute interviews with Gen Zers like you. And I'm not sure when we're going to record again, probably in July or August, but I would love to have you as one of the guests because, again, you just bring a whole different perspective. You're a high school student. Your high school student is doing some pretty great things. So I'll commit now to having you as a guest when we're back recording again.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that's about it. Thank you to everyone who's listening. If you want to learn more about Mark, feel free to go to the places that he mentioned. If you want to learn more about me or the Mentor Project, you can go to mentorproject.org and learn more about us. I hope to see everyone back here next week. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mark.